Absolutely. To my left here is a customer car. This is a Porsche 908-3. 13 of these built, 13 still exist. This one's owned by Phil Daguerpont in New Orleans, and rather than sit in a museum like Jerry Seinfeld's car does, he has one of these as well.
Okay.
Phil races the wheels off of this thing all over the country, and he drives it very well. And I enjoy working on it here at the shop. Further up is a bright green car that's called a kudzu. It was designed and built in Atlanta by Downing Motorsports. Jim Downing, chief designer and driver of that car. He's designed several cars over the years, and this one here, he actually won the 2001 Daytona 24 Hours.
Wow.
In that car. Very fast. The car is owned by Rossum Tugberg out of Virginia, and he should be at the Mitty with that. The red Jag is a customer car, street car. To the right of that is my 1962 E-Type. Sort of disassembled a bit. We're putting the new head gasket on it. It should be ready for the Mitty. It's prepared as the factory raced them in 1962 with the Roadster with the hard top. Pretty potent car. Keeps up with the big American muscle cars pretty well.
So this is what you'll be driving?
That one, actually I'm hoping to drive the one that's around the corner here. This is a 1981 Frisbee, which is a bodyworks lifted on it as we're currently working on the engine, getting the fuel injection timed right. This is a 1981 Frisbee single-seat Can-Am car driven by Danny Sullivan in the single-seat series, and he did so well in this car that Roger Penske noticed his performance in this car and hired him for his IndyCar team as his third-place driver behind Rick Mears and Emerson Fittipaldi. And then, of course, he went on to win Indy in 1985 for Penske. But this is his Can-Am car, and this is a lot of fun to drive. Very powerful, very light, handles greatly, a lot of downforce. And behind it in pieces back here is the Al Unser Sr. Formula 5000. It's my next restoration project here. This is the back end of the car. Very fast open-wheel cars. They were actually quicker than the Formula 1 cars of their day, mid-70s, 1975. All right, every car here in the shop, every car you see at the Mitty, they each have a story to tell, whether it be a short racing career or a lengthy racing career, or perhaps a great career professionally then handed down through the amateur ranks. But each car has a story, and they're all fun to drive, different performance characteristics, and quite, I guess I'd say that the performance characteristics of these cars would amaze a lot of people, think that they're 20, 30 years old. Well, they're 200-mile-an-hour cars. Okay, well, it all started with the Mitty, and the origins of that are the three clubs in Atlanta got together, and as you can see, my Jaguar is sitting over here, and I've got several customer Jags in here. I was a member of the Atlanta Jaguar Club, and myself and a couple of guys there had the idea of renting Road Atlanta and taking our sports cars up there and running them around the track. So we got the Aston Club and the Ferrari Club to help pay for the event, so the three of us shared it. We rented the track in 1977, held 2 events that year, and then continued on year after year with a single event. And all of a sudden I noticed that in addition to high-performance street cars, we were having these old retired race cars showing up on trailers, and I finally got the bright idea that what we really need to do is focus this event on historic racing cars and not current street cars. So that was the origin of historic sports car racing, and it all started with the Mitty at Road Atlanta. Racing cars from basically from the early 50s on up to the mid-2000s, and believe it or not, there are cars as recent as the mid-2000s that are totally obsolete in professional racing. So we provide a program and a format to allow these cars going way back to the 50s to continue to race rather than sit in museums. So we see the old cars out running along with contemporary cars that have been retired. And of course they run in their own relative groupings, similar age and potential or speed potential. 9 different groups that we have that represent the spectrum of different types of racing cars. and so that gives you a broad range from historic production cars to open-wheel formula cars to purpose-built sports prototype racers, and even stock cars from the NASCAR sanctioning area of Winston Cup and current Sprint Cup series. Well, if you're a race fan, you're definitely going to see the cars that you're a fan of, because we've got them all there, and you're probably going to see some categories of race cars that you perhaps weren't aware of or didn't follow closely. So you see the whole spectrum right there, and you get to see it up close in the paddock, meet the drivers, the owners, see the cars. Actually, that was the second race that we added to our calendar in the early days when the Mitty was the only event we had. So that was race number 2, and that's in the fall, mid-September, and it typically has been a smaller event because everybody comes out for the Mitty. It's sort of the spring fling thing to do, so it's a huge event. And the September event is a bit smaller, but it's growing as well, so someday may be as big as the Mitty itself. Walter Mitty will be there in spirit. A little background on that name for the event. There was a book by James Thurber and a movie that Danny Kaye starred in about this individual who dreamed of being a surgeon, a race car driver, and I think a mountain climber, 3 different aspects of sporting. And it was his dream to do that, and so we coined that as the name of our event, because in many cases it was our dream to get these race cars out there and drive them as best as we could. Boy, that's a tough question, and you'd probably get, you asked 100 people, you'd get 100 different answers. In my case, it was the mid-90s championship-winning Indy car that Jacques Villeneuve drove. And a good friend of ours who actually races a team in the American Le Mans series drove that car. He owns it and drives it very well, and he actually set the track record here with that car.
Wow.
At the Mitty. On most of the circuits in the U.S., and of course this is my home track, so a little biased there, but it really is a challenging circuit. It's a driver's circuit. It's got everything. It's got up and down elevation changes, it's got off-camber corners, it has high-speed turns, which you don't see at a lot of courses. Like turn 1 at Road Atlanta is hard to find at many tracks. A lot of people rank Road Atlanta up there in their top 3 tracks in the country, and I do as well, and I would add to that perhaps Road America and Watkins Glen, but Road Atlanta is right in there with the best in America. Well, I guess as we started out discussing that there's such a wide spectrum of cars at that event that it's a terrific opportunity for the spectator to come out and spend a moderate amount of money and get nearly tenfold the experience of what they're going to see and feel and see up close and watch wheel-to-wheel racing rather than perhaps a contemporary pro race where there are only 1 or 2 categories out racing. Here you see 50, 60 years spread and 300 cars doing it.